You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is Thursday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. It is time once again for episode 2 of the bi-weekly options extravaganza, known far and wide around the globe as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-scintillating network upon which so many of you folks are binging, just coming off the hottest, the craziest, the most redonkulous month in the 15-plus year. In January, it'll be 16 years. That is insane to say out loud, but that is the truth. And yes, this last month blows all of them away by leaps and bounds. It's incredible to see how many new people are still continuing to discover the network. We've been doing this for a while, and yes, new folks pouring in all the time. We love you all. Welcome to you all. Of course, if you like what you hear, you're a longtime listener, you're a new listener, all we ask is that you keep rating and reviewing on your platform of choice. It clearly does help new people continue to discover the content. And then, of course, if you want to go above and beyond, you want more content in your lives. And hey, who can blame you? You folks are voracious. I have the bandwidth bills to prove it out there. But if you want to go above and beyond, you want more content in your lives, we have great pro Q&A sessions. We had some great ones. Just had once in future and now present Dr. Bix coming in yesterday to answer all of your questions about all things vol. That was a good one. Those are always fun. We had some guy called the FLOWMASTER on there last week. I don't know. He's not that great in the hot seat last week. And a whole bunch of other fun stuff. Of course, you have Options Oddities every Friday. You can check all that out. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is where you get access to that. We just gave away our pro trading crate yesterday for the month of November on options, on the options boot camp. Blanking on the name of our winner, but congratulations to our winner. It was Ravi, I believe. So congratulations to you folks out there. And you want to get your name in the hat for next month. Of course, you want to join us live here as well. All the other fun stuff that we do. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. Let's see who's joining us on the old program today. First, let's go out to the dark, the stormy, the turbulent shores of Maine, where we are joined once again by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to the show, sir. How are things on the shores of Maine?
The shores of Maine actually are a little nicer. They were stormy this week, and I'm still waiting for my pro package with all the goodies in the swag, but I'm never going to get it. So I've resigned myself to just never getting it.
In the meantime, I've just been busy sending new clients your way. So I guess I'll make up for it with that. I guess you don't want business. I guess, what's business amongst friends when I could send you a box of umbrage?
Send us new clients. It's not just getting the swag back.
It's not even a swag. You want an umbrage box. You want a box to assuage your umbrage. So we shall put something together for you. It hasn't been created yet, but it will be shipped out. You will have your umbrage assuaged. Don't worry. the squeaky, annoying wheel will get greased as we keep on rolling around the dial there out to the hinterlands of Chicago, where people usually aren't annoying and squeaky, where we are joined by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the program. How are things in the hinterlands, sir?
Always good in the hinterlands. Happy to be here. Great day to be alive. God bless.
It is a great day to be alive because usually, listeners, we have a trio here on the show breaking down all things fun, but we decided today, let's make it a quartet. Why not? So we're extending out the hosting chair to none other than that FLOWMASTER guy. That's what we call him around here. In his actual day job, he is Mr. Henry Schwartz, the Vice President and Global Head of Client Engagement, Data, and Access Solutions over there at CBOE Global Markets. Mr. FLOWMASTER, welcome back to the option block, sir. It has been forever.
Thank you, Mark, and hello, everybody. Yes, I'm back. You can't get rid of me. And I actually I'd rather have Steve just call me the FLOWMASTER. It's a lot easier.
It's a lot easier on the business card printing, I would assume. Your title grows every time I talk to you, sir.
It's true, but I'm happy to be here, and it's shaping up to be a pretty amazing year for our industry. That's for sure. So lots to talk about.
All right, then let's get to it. It's time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down, surprise, surprise, what the heck is trading out there, listeners? And after a few sessions of turning decidedly south, trying to move away from 4,000, we are starting to move back towards it again. It is the magnet, the black hole that keeps sucking us towards it. Right now, the S&P up about 0.75%, the Dow up a little over 0.5%, and the NASDAQ up a little over about 1.1% right now. Still shy of the 4,000 handle, around 40 handles shy of it, but we shall see. The day is young. We have many opportunities to move towards it or move farther away as the session proceeds. That means our old friend VIX actually getting a bit of a boost since our last show. We were languishing for a while. We actually dipped ever so briefly into the teens, an 18 handle to be precise. We hit that for a few minutes out there. No teen handle on the docket today, about a 2270 in VIX when we kicked off the show. That puts it up about exactly 2 points. VVIX, so the vol of vol, that is literally unched from our last show, still hanging out at about an 85, trying to decide if it wants to get a little bit more gusto, if it wants to just shrivel and erode back down to the mid-70s. VXX at about a 1520. It's up about 0.6 of a point from last show. UVXY, will it split? Not today. 770, up about 0.4 of a point. SVIX, our inverse friend, 1390, down about 0.5 a point. UVIX, 690. Man, that one is winning right now in the race to zero between UVXY and UVIX. That one's up about 0.5 a point today. And good old VolQ, 2760. It's up about 2.6 points from where it was this time last week. All right, the table is set. Let's go around the horn. Let's go the opposite of the way we came. Let's start out there in the land of the FLOWMASTER. Mr. Schwartz, sir, what is lighting up your tape out there? And where are you? We can hear some noise around you. Where are you hanging out right now? What are you doing?
Right now, I'm at Pier 60 in New York City at the Benzinga FinTech Awards Day, which I was excited to come and take a walk around. And you guys have been to some of these conferences, and it's always really interesting to see what vendors are out there. And so a little bit of crypto, a little bit of metaverse, and news services, and like a good kind of mix of innovators, kind of basically in the entire spectrum of financial services. But it's been a busy week, and I mean, in terms of looking at our markets, volume's slowing down. I think we're really kind of into the tail end of the year. A lot of people are kind of writing the year off in terms of it's going to be a down year for the market, but it's not so bad that it's really wiped out the last couple of years, the incredible run up that we had. So, it's been a good stock pickers month or two, right? You've got a lot of rotation out of some of the rough names into some of the value names, and then back the other direction when we get some of the decent bounces. So, it's been kind of a fun market to trade.
That it has. Let's go around the horn out to the land of St. Charles. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what is lighting up your tape out there today?
I just said looking at the markets today, it seems like it's more of like a relief from the bears, more so, if anything. We are below the 4,000 mark. Looked like we may have it looked earlier as if we may have made a run for the 4,000 mark on the S&P earlier in the day, but that rally kind of fizzled out a little bit. About an hour after the market opened, we just kind of cooled off a little bit, but we're not too far off the highs. We're probably at one point we were at 39.74. We're down to 39.60, so we still have a lot of the gains left in us for where things were today. We have a little bit of a rally in silver right now. And we also have a little bit of a pullback in bonds. So the exciting thing to me today is that stocks are up, bonds are down. We're actually having somewhat of an inverse relationship between the two. Now, this whole year, because of just the interest rate hike fears with which we've had, and the interest rates going up because the fears were valid, we've had a lot of days to where both stocks and bonds were to go down. But now it's getting today's an interesting day because it actually feels normal. Looking at crude oil, not a large move on the day today. Natural gas, not a huge move, only 7%, which is about normal for natural gas on the day to day. And I mean, just with what's happening right now, just with the all these Bitcoins and tokens and things like that are kind of dominating the news right now. But ultimately, what it boils down to for those of us that live in reality and not in crypto, what's boiling down to what the market's going to be the big movement is the movement of the market is boiling down to the Fed coming up next week.
How dare you, sir? How dare you say reality is not in crypto? You take that back, sir. You're never invited onto our Crypto Rundown show again, even though you've never been on it once.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'd be scared to death to go on that show with the hate mail I'd get with me going on that show.
You probably would not be the most favorite guest of all time. I'm just going out on a limb with that.
That'd be a great. I would be the Iron Sheik of the crypto. Most likely.
You'd be walking in with the American flag, you'd be like, America Patu, and you'd spit on it. Yes, that would be you, definitely. That'd be your role on the crypto. Hey, maybe we should try it. Maybe we get people fired up and they tune in even more. Who knows? You know, they love a good heel out there. Maybe they love a heel in crypto. I think that SPF kid is playing that heel role right now pretty well for all of us, but who knows? Maybe we need another one out there as well. You know, who's always playing the heel, even though he has no idea what that means. It is the Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, what is lighting up your tape out there today?
Well, let's see. Well, funny you mentioned the SPF guy. The last guy that stole that much money from customers, I think, was John Corzine. So
yeah, Corzine beat him to the punch. Yes,
you just have to be the right donor, I guess, apparently, to get away with things these days. But we'll let that slide. Anyway, everything is revolving around whatever the heck the Fed does in an inflation number. Like, the whole market is stuck to these things. So, and at any time in between is just some sort of trend from whatever the last somebody threw the rune sticks, and that's what they're moving on. So one thing is oil prices are going lower. I thought the price cap on Russian oil would have the inverse effect, but didn't, at least for right now. So oil prices are definitely, lower is lower. There's no doubt about it. So somewhere somebody is increasing production and using less of it. Although I don't know about you guys, but diesel is still quite expensive here. Like, it's almost 2 to 1 now over regular gas. Of course, the lobster industry here uses diesel fuel. But yeah, USO. If you're looking at that, you're back to February. So we're pre-invasion levels. So you would think, I don't know how much that's going to show up in the CPI number, but it's lower. Nat gas, definitely lower from the squeeze they had, in late spring to now, it's a totally different market, although it is moving a little higher, bouncing today. So I can never make heads or tails of what's going on in this, the European energy market. They don't have energy. They're going to be frozen for the winter. Then they have energy. And then, supermarkets are shutting because the electricity prices are so I swear it's hard to keep track of it all. But then I see oil prices lower here. And again, different types of energy over there. I mean, how much gas do they use? Coal, nuclear, whatever. Not quite sure how that's all working out, but for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be a big deal anymore. So I think stocks get used to certain things that aren't going to change. And right now, this kind of up and down energy policy, which at the beginning of the year was causing a lot of headaches, driving a lot of prices higher. But it doesn't appear to be happening anymore or going into winter. Now, either they filled up their stocks or somehow, got all the loaded up somehow, because I'm not an energy expert. But, I look at price and natural gas, lows of the year, and oil, lows of the year. I mean, you can't somewhere, somehow the price has to get lower for a reason. So is it a buying opportunity? I'm not sure. Because like Exxon and all the big majors, XLE, they're not really following down a ton. They're definitely lower, but they're not down into, they didn't suffer those 30% drops like we saw a couple times this year from the peak. So maybe that hot money did not pile into the, energy producers like they did the last time. Maybe just, more in the physical stuff. So I think those are interesting. And the second part is just we're waiting for the Fed. And of course, as TOSAW said a few months ago, 3,900 is the magnet that the SPX has decided to gravitate around this year. And it still appears to be the same handle. The only difference now is look at how high the weekly volatility is for the SPX next week. So as I watch this, we're not seeing much of a move in it today. Basically just kind of keeping up with decay, but not quite. And you have 28 volatility on the December 15 cycle. And I'm pretty sure Powell already said he's just going to raise 50 basis points. So I think we've had this kind of, with a lack of new information, the stocks didn't hold up. But they are pricing next week's straddle at around $130 SPX. And as we know, after these Fed, CPI numbers and all that, like a 3-4% move in a day or two is actually what has happened every time, either up or down, depending on the flavor. So I think the market is in a big wait and see game until the 13th, the CPI number on Tuesday, and then whatever the Fed is going to opine on again. And, from that point of view, if it's terrible news, maybe we see higher VIX and lower stock prices, but like here we are, then we're coming into Christmas and lower, we could see those we could see that teen vol again. It was just there. And we could see it again. So it's kind of I feel like the market is just kind of waiting for the news, and there's no real energy either direction right now.
So the Rock Lobster says, buy straddles, load up on them right now. Swing for those fences. That's what the Rock Lobster is saying. So get out there, listeners, load up on those straddles here. It's the time. It's the time you've been waiting for. The red light has gone off. Buy those straddles. Let's see if folks are buying anything out there in the markets. In honor of the FLOWMASTER's visit, we took all of our data today, at least as much as we could, from the old trade alerts. Let's see what the trade alert gods have in store for us. First, let's go out to the major indices. Let's start in VIX land. VIX, 220,000 contracts on the tape. So not nothing, not a heck of a lot either out there. Kind of a bit of a shrug your shoulders kind of day. The ADV continuing to hang around that 550,000 level right now, 548 to be precise. So still below that 600K level. Will we get there again before the end of the year? I don't know. End of December, usually not exactly a banger time for VIX volume or VIX in general. But we shall see. SPY, about 4.5 million contracts on the tape right now. The ADV, 7.84, so back below 8 million, but not much The S, about a little north of 1.25 right now, 1.27 million. That used to be a banger day for the S. Anything north of $1 million this time of day for the S was huge. And now we were used to seeing it 1.5, if not more, maybe because of the influx of those crazy dailies. And I'm sure the FLOWMASTER has more to add on. The ADV, about 2.6 million out there in the S. That's still pretty robust for all things SPX. Small caps taking a bit of a break today. 349,000 contracts on the tape. That actually looks a little bit better when you see that the ADV has also come in quite a bit. It used to be around 1 million. Now it's down to 739,000. So 349 in that context looks a little bit better. And the Qs, 1.41 million. The ADV about 2.67 million. And let's see what the alert has in store for us out here in terms of most active. What's lighting up the single names out there today? As the FLOWMASTER alluded to, not a heck of a lot lighting up the tape right now in the single names. Only cost you 168,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. Listen, that is not a heck of a lot. That's kind of reminiscent of the dog days of August, or maybe come back end of December, those kind of times. So 168 to break into the top 10. That's not much. That gets you to GameStop, listeners. So we're hanging out back in meme land today, listeners. GameStop right now hanging out at 24, about 24.20, up nearly $2 or about 8.5%. So a nice little pop for all things GameStop. Number 9, we're going back out to China. China and EVs, two great tastes that either taste great together or they don't, depending on the day, listeners. Looks like today is a day that they taste great together. Up about 77 cents, trading about 13.36. 171,000 contracts for NIO coming in at number 9. Still hanging out in China for number 8, listeners. It's BABA, 224,000 contracts on the tape. BABA up $5.50 almost, trading 93 3/4 right now. So a nice pop for all things China related, it seems like today, at least for BABA and NIO. Number 7, we're going back to the memes. The reigning king of the apes. It's AMC, listeners, hanging out a little bit north of 250,000 contracts, 259,000 to be precise. AMC kind of unched on the day. They tried to rally to 670, and then they gave it back up. They're trading a little bit north of 610 right now, but still good for 259,000 contracts. Number 6, the artist formerly known as Facebook. It is Meta. 267,000 contracts on the tape for them. They're up about $1.25, trading a little bit north of 115 right now. So they have fallen off a little bit just in the last week. They were north of 120. They were 122 on our last show. They got up to 124 in this post-layoff resurgence they've had, where the street seemed like they loved them again for a few weeks after driving them well below 100 not too long ago. So intriguing stuff out there for Meta. Number 5, we're going out to the chip zone, listeners. It's AMD. 294,000 contracts. Again, light for them. If you listen to the show for a while, the chip zone, AMD and NVIDIA usually hanging out somewhere in the 4 to 6 range. So they are there again today, and usually doing somewhere in the 400 to up to maybe 600,000 contracts. Not quite there today. AMD only 294,000 contracts. But number 4, Exhibit B of the chip zone today, listeners. We've got NVIDIA. That one putting up some numbers, 423,000 contracts. NVIDIA, 168.70, up $7.50 or nearly 5% on the day. Man, they're loving NVIDIA. It's had about a $9 range on the day. Wow, quite the pop here for NVIDIA. All this talk about chips have been in the headlines a lot lately, listeners. So no surprise that they're popping. Maybe the extent of the pop, but still intriguing stuff out here. Let's go out to the fruit company. We were just talking about them earlier in the week about how they seem like they wanted to come for this name a little bit. I've joked many times during the show. The market doesn't like it when Apple is red. And today, the market is happy. Apple up $1.50, a little over 1%, trading about 142.25. Good for 584,000 contracts. This is the lightest day we've seen in Apple in quite some time, listeners. It's hard to get Apple below 500,000, or right around 500,000, I should say. And that's pretty much where we are right now. Usually this time of day, they're good for at least 700,000. Instead, we got to go to number 2 for that. That is the Amazonians, hanging out at 710,000 contracts right now. Almost $90, 89.90, up about $1.40 today for the Amazonians. And number 1, you don't need me to tell you, listeners, it's the old Tesla, 1.5 million contracts. So Tesla right now outpacing Amazon and Apple combined. Man, Apple has either fallen off or Tesla has really surged. I think it's a little bit of column A and column B out there. Either way, Tesla 172 and about a half, actually 172.40, off about $1.60 today, or nearly 1%. So intriguing stuff. They are still above their 52-week low, which came in right around 166, a little over $6 north of that right now. Can they retest that? We shall see. Mr. Flowmaster, all this data coming from the land of Trade Alert. If you can pry yourself away from all these shiny fintech awards over there at the Benzinga event, anything catching your eye out there in this data? Or perhaps are you seeing any interesting pockets of data or volume that we didn't mention here, sir?
Well, it's funny you mentioned China. I just put a basket in your account called China. So if you hit your little shortcut button, you'll see it show up. And I mean, we got a whole bunch of names in there that are up 20, 30%. And, that's been kind of the whole COVID zero tolerance policy, protests, creating a lot of volatility in that segment. So, that's been, as I said, kind of it's a good market for kind of stock picking and maybe sector or kind of product group picking. So that's been kind of a fun one, and then you did mention the 0-day flow, and I just looked at the SPX 0-day today. It's 52% of today's SPX volume is same-day contract. So I can't tell you how many meetings I've had in the last couple of weeks where that is the only thing people are focused on. They're trying to figure out how to treat these options and if there's opportunity or if there's risk. So that's kind of exciting too. But I mean, I've taken a couple little shots in a few names over the last week or two as we sold off. And I think Andrew was kind of exactly right. The market's in a weird little, sometimes energy goes down and everybody's like, well, that's good because we want inflation to go down. But then everybody's like, wait a second, that could be going down because there's a recession coming. So that same instrument, product group moving lower really is up for two very different kinds of interpretation. And, that's why we've seen kind of the swings. But, just on the volatility, level in general, at RMC in October, there's a lot of discussion about, wow, VIX is really low. And we had a 20% sell off and we never saw VIX get much higher than like the mid 30s. And, people were pointing out that what you really have in this kind of, allocation or, sector rotation in a way is you have diversification kind of doing what it's supposed to do, right? So you do have plenty of stocks that are 40, 50, 60% this year. And I own a handful of them, unfortunately. And then you have other segments that, that are doing a lot better, right? Especially financials, which tend to do a lot better when interest rates are back into normalness. And that in an index that cancels out and you end up with kind of low volatility. And that's exactly what we've seen.
Look at the Flowmaster bearing gifts. And I have a cool China button. I was just playing around with that, so that is always fun. You know what we need next, Mr. Flowmaster? A 0 DTE button, because this stuff is getting out of hand. Of course, I just hit most active.
Do that for you.
I just hit most actives in SPX, and it's like I hit the 0 DTE button, because literally every single contract in the top 20 here is expiring today. Wow.
That's true. You need a non-zero.
I know. I need find the non-zero DTE button. Well, let's find some crazy paper, shall we? As we keep on rolling really quickly before we get there, listeners, we are coming up to the tail end here of earnings season. Still some names popping off out there. We had Dave & Buster's on Tuesday. We had Ollie's, everyone's favorite outlet. I've never been to one. I don't think there are any around Chicago, but I've learned about them, listened to Brian's OPRs on them over the last few months. So GameStop. Thursday, we have Costco, Lululemon, and Broadcom popping off out there this week. We actually have hot off the presses from our friends over there at ORCL. Just sent them over the earnings move results, and earnings season report, listeners. Available for you folks because we like you folks for free over there. TheOptionsInsider.com. Click on the Options News and Articles tab to begin your journey to the earnings dark side. GameStop popping off yesterday after the bell. They went into their announcement 22.25. They were pricing in 8.1%. Actually, they're pricing in 10.7%. They delivered 8.1%, so a little bit of underperformance. Of course, again, it is a frame of reference thing, listeners. If we hang out and wait a little bit, you're going to get a very different move. GameStop up over 9% right now, so kind of splitting the uprights closer to what their straddle was pricing in. And we had some other names out there. You can check them all out over there on the report for yourselves. We do still have names popping off later today after the bell. CHWY after the bell. Let's see, 41.25 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $5.10. In the past, they've moved $3.62. So a fair amount of extra juice in CHWY. We've talked about this next one before. This one kind of fascinates me. Costco today after the bell as well, trading right around $482 when we ran this report. They're pricing in, they're pricing in $19.95. In the past, they've moved $10.13. So pretty much 2x is what they're pricing into that Costco straddle, listeners. That is a heck of a lot of extra juice. I do need to investigate that further. Today after the bell as well, Lululemon, how much sheer yoga pants vol are they pricing in? Let's find out. $3.72 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $27. In the past, they've moved $19.80. So a good year and also a fair amount of extra juice on the docket for Lululemon. Let's not forget Oracle. They're on the 12th next week after the bell. 78.75 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $5.40. In the past, they've moved $4.98. So a little bit of extra juice, but nothing crazy out there. But Costco leaping off the charts there. Something is afoot out there. Speaking of things being afoot, something was afoot this earnings season. 118% is where we settled out, listeners. You can see the chart for yourselves, all the data. That is still well north of our average since the pandemic of around 92%. So it's been pretty much underperformance since the pandemic. These last couple of cycles, though, blowing it off. You can see it all for yourselves, theoptionsinsider.com. Actually, I forgot one thing. We also were taking off a couple of the trades today in GameStop. We exited 2 straddles out there in GameStop, both on the 27.5 strike from May. So a little bit of longer term straddle action out there. So check those out if you want to see exactly when we put those on and why they're taking them off today. As we keep on rolling, it is time to get weird. It is time to get wild. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we unleash the Eye of Sauron, see what it fixes its fiery gaze upon for us today. And today's Eye of Sauron will be driven by the FLOWMASTER, courtesy of his trade alert offerings. They have some cool scanning functionality in there as well. Let's see what it's going to find for us. First off, though, before we even get into all that fun, we have to pay off a trade we've been keeping an eye on for a while. I don't know if you saw this one on Mr. FLOWMASTER as well, but last week on the show, we talked about what looked like a funky time strangle in Camping World Holdings, everyone's favorite name, ticker symbol CWH. We talked about someone coming in. Looks like they bought nearly 1,875 of the December expiring last week, 27 puts expiring on the 2nd. They paid 91 cents for those. They did a total of about 2,400 on the day. We talked about those last week. They came back the day later and bailed on about 800 of them for 52 cents. So they lost around 40 cents on 800 of them. The rest were still open. They didn't work out too well. So they ended up dropping around 32 grand on that 500 lot. The rest of it, they added all together somewhere around 127 grand. They still had about 1,132 open of the December expiring today, hence the time strangle aspect, 27 half calls. They paid 75 cents for those. And coming into Showtime, listeners, the stock, $23.68. By the way, when they put this trade on, the stock was, where was it? $26.70. So a wee bit higher than it is right now. So these D's expiring tomorrow, 27 half calls for 75 cents. They are still open and they are not exactly looking good. So if you add up this leg, if they lose it all tomorrow, then you're looking at somewhere around 85 grand for this trade. Add it all up, it's somewhere north of 200 grand that they've dropped on this trade. Mr. FLOWMASTER, A, did you see this funky time strangle? And B, what are your thoughts? You think they did lose on both legs, sir? Do you agree?
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Isn't Camping World owned by one of the guys on Shark Tank?
I know they are the RV people. I don't know who owns them.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like maybe somebody kind of was looking for a little bit of a rebound and they didn't get it. But I was hoping today, there's one out there today in Dr. Pepper, which might be kind of a fun one to keep an eye on for next week. So,
we'll get to that one then. How about that? After that, we'll finish up Camping World, and then you can regale us with what you found out there in Dr. Pepper. Really quickly, Mr. Rocklops, I know you were paying attention to this one too. I think you were on the show when we first profiled it last week. What are your thoughts on looks like the bitter end of this Camping World funky time strangle? It seems like they dropped somewhere between $200 and let's say $225,000 on this trade, sir. Oh no, he has forgotten his mute button again.
You know what? I was on such a long streak.
You were just basking in the joy of listening to the FLOWMASTER. You forgot you had to talk.
Well, it is nice to hear the FLOWMASTER opine because they don't call him the FLOWMASTER for nothing, from what I have discovered. So yeah, it looks like at least from the call side here, total Palooka bill. The 27 puts though expiring on Friday. Did they? And that's another one. Yeah, they did get rid of some of them. So yeah, it looks like they're going to have a tough one. They ran into a market going nowhere with the calls.
Yeah, the one thing you need if you're going to buy a time strangle, you need it to go somewhere. You can't have it hang out. And they did it kind of exactly the wrong way. If they bought the puts a week out and the calls last week, they probably would have looked a little better because we had it sell off this week, and all you're left with is the vestigial calls at that point, and they're not really doing much for you. So yeah, a whole bunch of nothing in terms of action and a whole bunch of losing money on this. Very funky. You don't see time strangles very often, which is why it came up on our radar. And now because we got the FLOWMASTER on, he's always running scans, even when he's not talking to us. Mr. FLOWMASTER, something catching your eye out there in Keurig Dr. Pepper today. Before we get to that really quickly, listeners, Keurig Dr. Pepper, you know it. Ticker symbol KDP, trading 38 and a quarter right now, up about 30 cents on the year. A year ago, it was trading 34.81. So one of the few names having a decent year. This one's had a pretty volatile year, though. It shot up to 39 and a quarter on January 14th. And then by May 20th, it was back down to $34. And then by August 18th, back up to 40 again. And then by September 30th, back down to about $35. And then, by the way, in August, it looks like it hit its high for the year of 41.31. And then it hit again in October 28th, 39.55. And it's kind of been bouncing in this around 40 to about 36 range ever since. So been very interesting range-bound name to be trading over the course of the past year. Mr. FLOWMASTER, what did you find out there in good old KDP that caught your eye, sir?
Well, so I saw unusual volume in there. It's like 3 times average. But it's interesting because it stocks at 38.30 and it's all in the D39 calls. And it's a couple different chunks of buying in the 20 cent range. But what's kind of interesting is the account type data shows that it's actually a firm buyer from market makers, not a customer buyer. And I was just this morning I was having a conversation at a bank about volatility skew and kind of some of the mysteries of why is it kind of flat, and what I had heard at some conferences. And he looked at me and said, you don't forget that there are these over-the-counter positions and adjustments taking place that the listed world doesn't see. And it is easy to kind of forget that there are some other things out there. And when we see a firm buyer, it's usually, it's definitely for a reason. Firms are more or less not really permitted to kind of take speculative positions anymore. And so I'm guessing there's some sort of OTC trade on the back, but relatively short dated trade. And, as you said, the stock's been a little volatile. It might be, and when I see, kind of a pretty clear case of, okay, here's some speculative call buying. Okay. Even if it's on the back of an OTC, there's kind of a couple ways to handle it, right? You can kind of go along, or you can fade and kind of take advantage of the fact that that activity impacts the pricing, right? You see a low volatility bump, you see maybe a flattening of that skew, so it can turn it into a really nice buy right opportunity if you just like to sell calls, or maybe use it as a starting point to figure out if you want to take a position in the underlying stock. So that one just kind of jumped out at me because it's recent and because I like a good Diet Dr. Pepper
I will say they have done some voodoo with that Diet Dr. Pepper. The ads are correct. You can't tell the difference between the diet and the regular. Maybe that's what someone discovered. A fund manager took a sip of diet and they said, wait a minute, this stuff's amazing. I need to buy 4,000. How many did they buy? 4,611 of the D's 39s for 20 cents. They bought them in two chunks, listeners, 3,495. And they came back in for 1,000 more. And then a couple of scattered more have traded since then. So yeah, interesting stuff. Funds scooping up, or firms out here scooping up some upside. 39 strike. I mean, they said this thing has been kind of range bound, but it has flirted with a little bit north. 41 and change was the highest that it got. It will need to get there. We're pretty close to it pretty quickly for these D's calls to make some sense. Mr. Rock Lobster, we've talked about Keurig Dr. Pepper in the past on the show. It's been a little while. Has this one come across your radar of late, sir?
Yeah, it wasn't the old days. It was Green Mountain, and then Keurig bought Green Mountain, and Dr. Pepper merged with Keurig.
Yeah, I think that's what drives all this crazy paper. Yeah, because you're right. Green Mountain was a big offender for a while.
And yeah, because that was on the show for years. And then, yeah, I mean, I would say this is the kind of raises the cackles type of trade for sure. I'm just looking at it now, and I believe the FLOWMASTER's flow has livened up Live Ball a little bit even. So he's everywhere. His tentacles are far and wide. And as our simple test case is, the calls are 20 bid going out. So nobody's in a rush to sell these. Let's put it that way. And they're only a week and a half to go, and they're only 62 cents out of the money. So I would say this has a good shot. I mean, they're only paying 21 vols. So it's not like they're breaking the bank on these, but it has the ring of something that can move. That's all I'll say there. It has the ring.
So Green Mountain merged with Keurig. They got acquired back in 2015. Then Dr. Pepper Snapple Group acquired them in 2018, January 2018. So it's been just a beverage palooza out there. It's still smaller than PepsiCo, obviously, and Coke, but not that much. This is quite the beverage juggernaut out here. And someone expects this $11.62 billion in annual sales juggernaut to have a nice little pop. Interesting catch, Mr. FLOWMASTER. We'll keep an eye on these and come back to these as well out here. Let's see what we've got on the radar here. Let's wind it out here with a name we've talked about on the show before, but haven't come back to in a little bit. This is Unity Group Inc., ticker symbol UNIT, UNIT, trading right now $6.04. And this one has had an interesting year. A year ago, 1345, so more than 2x clearly. They bounced up to about 1409. Looks like that was around their high for the year, 14.25. They hung out of that level for a while. They were still at 14.25 by March into April expiration. Then they started selling off. By May, they got to $10. In July, they got to $9, and they rallied again in August, got up to $10 and change. And then ever since August, it's been pretty much just as Mr. Rock Lobster would say, a tale of woe and I think misery. What's his little saying he throws around out there? They sold off from $10 in August down to $6.68 in September. Then they tried to rally it again. They got all the way up to about almost $8 again towards the end of November. And then it's just fallen off a cliff. A lot of it in the last week, down nearly 20% just in the last 5 days, trading 602 right now. Pretty much unched today, but a rough period. Actually got as low as 558 this morning. So they hit their 52-week low this morning before rebounding off that. So a rough time for Unity, but someone thinks, you know what? This is a great opportunity to scoop some upside here in Unity. We saw someone coming in and picking up 6,600 of the D6 calls for 25 cents, lifting the offer. This was a 78 vol. So this has all the feels of a 2021 style trade. We got a cheap stock, kind of beat up, maybe poised for a rebound. Decent vol, not quite triple digit vol, but pretty hefty vol. Lifting the offer. Let's see. This is pretty much right on a 52-week low, close to, like I said, when they bought these calls. No earnings. The next earnings are on February 24th. So this is straight up old school swing for the fences upside call paper. Even though it's at the money right now, they've already had a nice little rebound on these. So Interesting stuff. Mr. Flowmaster, I'm curious, did you notice these Unity group calls going up today? And if so, what are your thoughts, sir?
That one I missed. I guess I was focused on the Dr. Pepper. But, I like I said, I think we see a lot of people kind of punting around, maybe just kind of keeping some discretionary capital, kind of hoping to catch some little swings. When we track open interest, and to me, it is important to try to make sure that the open interest is growing with the flow, because what I've seen, and Andrew, I bet you've seen the same thing. Plenty of cases where we see kind of some overbuying to kind of create some interest, and that creates the opportunity, when the follow-up buyers come in. Like, I don't think that the Dr. Pepper is an example of that, specifically because it looks like a firm buyer. But sometimes you're seeing somebody sweep up, 5,000, 10,000 calls in the 20 to 30 cent range, and then layer out of them up to, say, 40 cents. And the next day, the open interest only moves by 2,000 contracts. And so I'm pretty sure that people are kind of looking for the names with liquidity is a little bit light, and the conditions are right for a little bit of a frenzy to take place, which lets them get into a position, and they still might have that view, but they've offset the cost by a decent amount.
Mr. Rock Lobster, anything to add? Are you loving yourselves these Unity D6 calls, sir? Nearly 7,000 of them going up today.
Well, I have to agree with Henry there. Like, you want to see that open interest getting bigger, for real. And like the thing with this D16, this D cycle is you have two huge announcements next week. So it's I've always find it better to buy cheapy options in the potential of a big move than not. So now, granted, it could all be a big zero show, but it's like one of those things. It's the price is right. You have a stock that could easily be up $1, and the upside for a call like that is pretty good. I mean, the stock was just $7 and something cents. So somebody could be coming in. I don't know why nobody likes these. I guess every REIT on the planet is getting beat with the ugly stick lately. And Unity is, I guess, part of the same problem. But it's like one of those things where the price is right on these calls.
Is the price right? We shall find out, listeners. You like these? They're pretty much at the money calls now. The stock has rebounded a little bit. So at the money swing for the fences for 25 cents. You like these? We'll keep an eye on these as we keep on rolling. It is time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the mail block, the portion of the show where you folks take the reins, your questions, your comments. We also turn the spotlight back on you folks with our questions of the week. Right now, we have an interesting one cooking out there. We asked you, what is your favorite new? We put new in quotes because one of these at least did launch towards the end of last year, but new to a lot of you out there. What is your favorite new option product that you've added to your trading arsenal this year? We gave you 3 choices and the infamous other. Now that the FlowMaster's on, I do think we neglected to add one, but we'll get to that in a second. We've got BITO options, SPX daily options, your new vol ETPs out there, so your SVIX, your UVIX, your SPKY. We kind of lumped them all together because not any of them by themselves are really blowing the doors off. Or your infamous other, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. We shall start with you. I forgot what you voted for on Monday. I think you might have gone for the dailies, but what is your vote if you've amended it or maybe keeping it with the dailies? And then B, more importantly, what do you think our audience is voting for, sir?
I think it's the dailies still for the audience, and I'm going to keep my vote with the dailies. I think it's a great feature to have if you want to do something for 8 days or something like that. And I'm a daily fan.
Mr. Daily loves himself a little daily show, some daily options. He's just an all day of kind of guy. Mr. Rocklops, same question for you, sir. What is your choice, and what do you think our audience is voting for?
Oh, it's going to be daily. I think they're It's almost like, it's almost as big as when they launched the weeklies and almost big as when they launched the VIX. So it's like I think they're going to spread like wildfire across the whole option industry.
Almost as big as when they launched the VIX. Interesting.
Well, VIX was nothing until they had, futures.
So they had futures, the futures and then options eventually. But interesting. Do you think this is as transformative that they just added 2 more days to the week and all of a sudden it's changed the game for everybody? Maybe.
Yeah, because they're gonna move to dailies for Apple and Google, and it's coming. Like so you mark my words, man. You mark my words.
Interesting.
I remember working on this stuff at the CBOE like 25 years ago. They didn't have the bandwidth for it at the time.
I remember putting that question recently to John Davidson, the CEO of OCC. Are we going to see some dailies now that these are getting hot and single names? And he was like, we put the brakes on that. I don't think OCC really wants to deal with earnings going off and expiration at the same time. They don't let alone every day. That stuff kind of throws them for a loop. But hey, maybe.
But I swear the industry is going to beat on them until they just give it.
Maybe the numbers don't lie, right? All right, Mr. Flowmaster, same question for you. Since you're on and you're also your other nickname is Mr. Nanos out there. I look at this and I realize we neglected to add the Nano. So if you want to voice a write-in for the Nanos, have at it. And then what do you think our audience is voting for?
Yeah, I do want to point out that I traded 1,000 nanos one day in the last couple
size.
of weeks.
I'm going to start calling you the size Flowmaster.
If you go looking around for that spike in volume, it's all me. That's really funny. I think the short term 0-day options are the data shows that's where there's just an explosion in activity. So that would be mine.
All right, then. Let's see what your folks are saying. And early on, Bido was running away with it. I had a feeling the SPX dailies would take it, and we have seen just a massive influx of love in SPX dailies pretty much ever since the first day. It's now 67.9% for the dailies, followed by 17.9%. So everyone voted for Bido day one and like never again. And then 10.7% for the vol ETPs. Only 3.6% for other. What is your other? You guys didn't write in with your other. I want to see what your other is. That always intrigues me. Maybe you have a product. Maybe we forgot nanos. Maybe there's something else we forgot on this list, listeners. Really quickly here before we get to around the block. This is the perfect one actually for the Flowmaster since he's joining us. This question comes from easy for me to say, Avino338. That's a handle. He says, or perhaps she, I was surprised to see that November was another record month for options. Well, you and me both, Avino. They say, I expected it to be a pretty slow period because of the holiday. Do you think the ramp up of interest in SPX daily contracts is the reason for such a big number? How many of those things are going up every day? Well, we were just talking about that earlier in the show, Avino338. So hopefully you tuned in. But the answer for those is a heck of a lot. Yeah, Henry, he or she brings up a good point here that I was a little surprised that, given how slow the holiday week is for November, we have a day off, we have a half day. I didn't expect November to come in north of 900 million, yet it did. I think it was somewhere around 922 million contracts. So a record banger month, number 3 all time. As Avino wants to know, do you think it was the SPX dailies that put it over the top, sir?
Well, when the SPX 0 days are trading 1.5 million contracts a day or more, that certainly contributes. And like I said, today it looks like so far 52% of the SPX volume is contracts that expire in about 2 hours. But you also have to keep in mind you're getting into year-end hedges, right? So we kind of always see a ramp up in that last couple months. This year maybe a little bit less because the hedging didn't work super well in the January, or the sell-off in the first quarter this year. So it actually, we're seeing less of that, but it's by far it's being made up for by these 0 days. But I mean, that's kind of the story this year. The index and ETF options are a huge growth, while single stock is down about 15% on the last data set that I ran. So it's been a pretty interesting reshuffling of the deck. I think kind of back towards something that's a little bit more sustainable than what we saw last year.
As Henry mentioned, I just pulled up the numbers while he was talking. The top 20 most active contracts in SPX today are all 0 DT. There's not a single one to be found. And then, in fact, of the top 40, if you expand it beyond the top 10, beyond the top 20, all the way to the top 40 most active contracts in SPX today, only 2 expire on days other than today. Oh, no, I take that back. 4 expire on days other than today. Every other contract in the top 40, except for 4, is 0. This is just a sea change. This is crazy. So, yes, intriguing stuff. I think Henry is correct. The short answer is, this is a lot of paper and kind of hard to ignore the impact, even on traditionally slow periods like the holidays. As we keep on rolling, it is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on until our next episode on Monday. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, we shall start with you. What are you keeping an eye on until the next time we gather here together on Monday, sir?
Seeing if the 3900 magnet will come out again. It tried to come out a little bit yesterday, but right now we're overcoming it. So seeing where the market's going to go, and then just eagerly awaiting for the Fed, which is after Monday's show.
Yes, Fed Beyond Monday's show. So everyone watching that as well. Mr. Rock Lobster, same question for you. What are you keeping an eye on through the weekend until the Monday episode, sir?
Oh, I hate to say it, I'm just doing the same thing TOSAW is. It's all the same. Looking for... there's going to be the Fed, there's the CPI number on Tuesday, and then maybe we disconnect from that for a while and actually look at, more market fundamentals and, stuff like that. And, the push and pull, recession recovery, all that stuff, which should probably drive us back to 3,900 again. But next week, I don't think we'll be anywhere near 3,900 by after Thursday.
And Mr. FLOWMASTER, easy for me to say, Mr. FLOWMASTER, what are you keeping an eye on through the weekend, sir?
I concur with your other experts. I think that the Fed is certainly something to kind of don't forget about it. I think the rest of the year I'm going to be trying to make a lot of small trades, but I think there'll be plenty of opportunity. As we kind of people start to take, the rest of the year off, or certainly take the vacation time they didn't have this year. You get more of these moves where people aren't paying much attention. And, even things like that. I dug a little deeper into that unit trade that we were talking about. They announced a convert offering, I think, last week. So the stock got whacked, and that's, dilution. And so what you're kind of seeing is some people saying that, believing maybe that additional capital from the convert is going to stabilize their business. So, dig into things. And, like I said, I for the rest of the year, I certainly will be keeping my trades small, but I'll be trading plenty.
All right. That music means we've come to the end of another epic sojourn through the world of all things OB. Let's go around the horn again. Let's start with the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Rock Lobster, sir. If folks want to learn more about all things pit, where should they go? What should they do?
Yes, 888-TRADE-01. Ask for Ted or other Andrews. And if you, if you say you listen to us on the show, we'll give you 10% off. And I would also say check out the FLOWMASTER goodies over there on the CBOE, because he's got good goodies.
He's got good goodies, says the Rock Lobster. It might be the best plug I've ever heard here on the network. Mr. FLOWMASTER, if they want to check out those good goodies, where should they go? What should they do?
No comment on the goodies, but head on over to CBOE.com and you'll see links to Data Shop. You'll see links to Data and Access Solutions, which is where we have all of the spectacular platforms and data that help people like you and me and this whole community make the best decisions they can and learn more about the market. An important part.
There you go. You know where to go. CBOE.com. Pretty easy to find. You've probably been there once or twice. And check out all the fun data that Henry and the rest of the Data Solutions team have to offer. And last, and of course not least, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, where should folks go if they want to check out the growing universe of Uncle Mike content?
By all means, follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. Also, feel free to check out my website, stcharleswealth.com, if you're looking for a financial advisor who's not afraid of options.
He ain't afraid of no ghost and or option. Check him out. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. We got to get on out of here. Back in a little bit, listeners, with my good friend, Mr. Blue Putnam, the senior economist and chief researcher over there at CME Group for TWIFE. I haven't talked to him in a while on the show. He's always got some great data and research up his sleeve, so stay tuned for that. All of our pro folks, hang out in the chat. We'll pump some fun stuff in there. We'll be back in a little bit live with Mr. Putnam to break down the world of futures options. Back again tomorrow, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for volatility views. And then after that, for all you pro cats, back again for options oddities, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. And then back again next Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.